or we're having problems serving up these pages. And so I can drill down and begin to now investigate, that was these servers. All the other servers appeared to be fine. So I can start to pinpoint, we've got production issues likely with 3 of these servers serving up these web pages. If I'm wanting to track a particular transaction, when I clear down, all right, I got that one. These guys have already timed out of my environment. So, and again, that's a really good point to bring out. These are all controlled by you. How long you keep the data is completely up to you. So you can have those things time out after a day. You can have those pages time out after a week or a month, kind of depending on how long you want to be able to go back in time and look at the actual pages that were involved. Now, the statistics that they generate and the dynamic thresholds that they're involved in creating are not going to change and not going to flush out, but just the actual pages where you can see those. And again, you control that in the administration. I mentioned Watchpoints, and so let me give you kind of a view of what you can create from a Watchpoint standpoint. Watchpoints are really the way that you view the data and the way that you group the data. And you create, I created Watchpoints for, we saw that through the IE. All a Watchpoint was through a browser, so anything that came through with the IE was my Watchpoint, and it threw an incident or it threw an alarm. We also saw the application, Calbro Medical or Calbro Products, or Calbro Trader is what we did. One of the other ways to do that is we've got a Calbro Products, which is an online web store. So anything that has or links into the Calbro Products web store is going to be tracked overall as an overall application, and all of the data will roll up. But I can also create underlying stopping points inside of that application. So these are really the steps that the user would go through to purchase a product. So I browse the products, I look at the details, then I may authenticate. Any gift options are available. So as we move through the site and we begin to move through the process of completing an order, I can track each individual time and see from a Watchpoint standpoint, rather than having to alert that, hey, the whole Calbro Products application is having problems, and then me drill down and go, oh, well, it's actually the product details page or the product details section. We can have a Watchpoint that will take me right into that. The Watchpoint could be a series of pages. So when I sign in, that may not be just one screen. It may be 2 or 3 screens if I'm having to authenticate and move through that process. So creating the Watchpoint to really wrap that up. And just like we did with the other areas, we could jump down into the sessions, or we could jump down into the pages, or we could look at these things over time in that graph view. So these Watchpoints allow me to view the data not just from an application standpoint, not just from a web browser, but maybe even from a geographic perspective or where they're coming in from. So they're coming in, their mobile devices coming in from an Android or an iPhone or the different web browsers. This just allows me to view and begin to manage the data from the way that I want to. And nothing would be complete without having a report availability. So these are the reports. You can come out here and take a look at all of your elements that were in latency for the last 7 days, the throughput, the compliance, and begin to overall look at and generate these reports for your use or for propagation out to maybe an end user or an application team, or even propagate those reports up into management. And I can also export that data right here as well, put that into a CSV. All right, so to recap, we looked at being able to take a look at data from a number of different viewpoints or vantage points, the first being the global application delivery, which again is populated out of the box and allows you to start to see the traffic from a geographic standpoint without having to create any watch points or create any views. But you can also then create views based on watch points to allow you to begin to track maybe the application. So here is the Calbro Trader. Here are those key actions that we looked at. So here is a view of how we step through and the volume of traffic as it steps through our website. We also looked at the ability to track incidents from a volume or a performance or an availability standpoint. And again, all of these, just like we saw over there, we can jump into, we can drill down and begin to investigate those, or we can jump out here and do some triage all on the front page and get information about the incident from a report standpoint, or drilling directly down into that the incident management screen. Controlling through Watchpoints outside of the views, and then giving you the ability to report on all of those components that we've specified. And again, I mentioned that, or I didn't mention the extraction, but as you're in any one of these, at any point you may need to pull out the data and pass that on into second or third level support, and I can do that. I have the ability to pull out that page level data, and let's just jump straight down into the, we'll jump down into the pages here. We can now export all of those records and get all of those put them into a CSV to be attached to a ticket, or to be propagated over to second or third level support. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dick, and I believe he's going to open it up for questions.
That's right. Excellent job, Mike. I really enjoyed it. But before we, in fact, now would be a good time if you want to use the Q&A box. Just go ahead and submit a question. But the one thing I thought, I kind of thought of a couple of things, and the first one was, I don't know if anybody out there plays fantasy football, but I noticed that I was trying to get in one weekend right before to change the lineup, and I couldn't get in. There was some sort of performance glitch on the system, and I thought, well, that's really no big deal for me, but I bet a lot of people had some serious money riding on these things, and if you can't get in and set your lineup, you're at a big disadvantage. So anyway, I tried to reach out to them afterwards. I did some research to try to find out who was the right contact to say, hey, you guys really need EUEM, and then you could have pinpointed what was going on. But I wanted to just, Mike, ask you, we mentioned at the outset Northwestern University and kind of the reasons that they move forward with EUEM, and one of them had to do, obviously, with performance. They have an enrollment system, and I would suspect, let's say that you had a student, and that student wanted to try to get into a class, and that class was required for graduation, and as a result, maybe they, enrollment opens at a certain particular point in time, and it's kind of first come, first serve. And let's say that person wasn't able to get in and couldn't enroll in that particular class. Now with EUEM, you could actually pinpoint what was wrong, right? I mean, he couldn't call up and complain and say, hey, the server was down, I couldn't get in, that's not fair. With EUEM, you could come back and say, well, we were up, it was your ISP that really prevented you from getting in. Isn't that kind of what so it's finger pointing, but at least it's sort of controlled finger pointing.
So
is that right?
Yeah. So Dick, interesting you mentioned that. So here's where I would come in, and if a particular user said, hey, I'm having some problems, and I didn't want to sift through all that other data. I absolutely could, and I could go down and we could start to query, but I could come out and say, just tell me a specific user, right? Give me that user ID. And maybe it's an IP address, or if that user is authenticated, give me your username. There's a number of different ways to identify them, and we could actually go in and look at their particular session. When you mentioned Blackboard, I was at I worked with a customer who they used Blackboard, and when it first came out, there was a big issue with some performance issues with their initial rollout, and the students knew that. So anytime that they would not turn in an assignment, they'd blame Blackboard, and they would say, hey, we couldn't get in. Well, or we tried to get in and it was too slow. I tried to upload and I kept timing out, and they would come up with all these cool excuses. Well, when they deployed EUEM, now they're able to the university is able to track that user, and that they can say, well, look, you logged in and then you logged back out, or you never logged into the system to try to upload your project. And so they begin to put the accountability back onto the end user in that scenario by saying, hey, what you're claiming is absolutely not true. You never tried to turn that paper in. And so that kind of, they had to go figure out some other excuses. But that was one example there. But you could also, in your fantasy football, they could, if you were able to get a hold of them at that same time, say, it's you're having a specific issue, or we can even then begin to drill down, not necessarily from your particular transaction, although that might be the initial call, but we can start to drill down from an application. Give me everybody that's trying to access, update, lineup page. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I promised I wouldn't bring this up, but I was going to do it anyway. I know that it's been in the news a lot, but the Obamacare website has been going up and down. Now, had they have EUEM, they probably would have been able to pinpoint things. And we don't know what all we know is that it hasn't been very reliable. But had they had EUEM, then they would have been able to say, hey, look, it's this particular server, or it's related to the host, or something like that, right? So. Okay.
I mean, yeah, you can get down and help pinpoint into some individual pages. Now, I haven't got on the website, so I can't say if it was maybe one individual page or all pages or what have you, but you can definitely get more information than just it's not working or it's slow. Okay.
All right. Well, there's a couple of questions that have come in, so let's ask them then. And the first question here is, what does EUEM integrate to? And I know you showed a couple of things. I know you saw there was Remedy, and I think that there was the Proactive. What are there some standard out-of-the-box integrations with EUEM?
Yeah, absolutely. So the out-of-the-box integrations are with our own products. So with BMC Proactive Net Performance Management, our infrastructure monitoring and event and service impact management solution. So that is one of the out-of-the-box integrations. We also will integrate with Remedy, as well as Remedy on Demand. But one of the things that since we can send emails, one of the very common things is integrating into non-BMC ITSM suites, and at least everyone I've come across can receive an email, and that can be turned into an incident. So we can send emails into other ITSM solutions for incident creation.